My name is Beulah Gideon, and at 62 years old, I've learned that the most devastating wounds aren't delivered with fists. They're delivered with words that reveal who someone truly is when they think they hold all the power. I arrived at my daughter Lauren's house that Tuesday morning carrying a tin of fresh lemon cookies and a small envelope containing my pension withdrawal receipt. It was a modest sum, $8,000, but I'd hoped it might help with their mounting bills. Lauren and her husband Derek had been struggling lately, and I'd watched my daughter's stress lines deepen with each passing month. The television was blaring in their living room, the local news anchor's voice cutting through the morning air with barely contained excitement. Tonight's lottery drawing promises to be one of the biggest in state history, $43 million. Lauren sat on the edge of the couch, her manicured fingers clutching a crumpled lottery ticket like it was a lifeline. Derek paced behind her, that familiar swagger in his step despite their financial troubles. He'd always been all confidence and no substance, but Lauren had married him anyway. "This is it, babe," Derek said, kissing the top of Lauren's head. "I can feel it. This is our ticket out of here." I set my purse on the kitchen counter and opened the cookie tin, arranging the contents on one of Lauren's good plates, the china set I'd given her for her wedding 5 years ago. "Mom," Lauren said without looking up from the television, "if you didn't need to bring anything, we're fine." But they weren't fine. The stack of unpaid bills on their kitchen counter told a different story. The second mortgage paperwork Derek thought I hadn't seen. The credit card statements stuffed hastily into drawers. "I thought you might like some cookies," I said simply, adjusting my pearl necklace, a nervous habit I developed over the years. "And I brought that pension withdrawal we discussed." Derek's head snapped up at the mention of money, but before he could respond, the television erupted with fanfare. The lottery drawing was beginning. "Here we go," Lauren whispered, her knuckles white as she gripped the ticket. I watched the numbers fall one by one. 07, 23, 31, 42, 16, and the Powerball 09. Lauren's face went through a series of transformations, confusion, disbelief, then absolute euphoria. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Oh my God, Derek, we won. We won." Derek snatched the ticket from her hands, scanning the numbers again and again. His face split into a triumphant grin that made something cold settle in my stomach. $43 million, he shouted, spinning Lauren around the living room. "We're set for life, baby. We're rich." I stood quietly in their kitchen, watching my daughter and son-in-law celebrate their windfall. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't quite place what it was. "Mom," Lauren finally noticed me, her eyes bright with excitement. "Can you believe it? We actually won." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, though my voice sounded strange to my own ears. "I'm happy for you both." Derek was already on his phone, probably calling his brother or his business partners to share the news. Lauren was pulling out her laptop, no doubt researching what to do with lottery winnings. "This changes everything," Lauren said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "We can pay off the house, the credit cards, everything. We can travel, maybe buy that place in Florida Derek's always wanted." I nodded and started gathering my purse to leave. Clearly, they had other things on their minds now. "Actually, Mom," Derek said, hanging up his phone and turning to face me with that confident smirk, "we won't be needing your pension money after all." Something in his tone made me pause. "That's fine, dear. I'll just—" "In fact," Derek continued, walking closer, "we won't be needing you around here anymore either." The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at Lauren, waiting for her to correct him, to defend me, to show some sign of the daughter who had once needed me for everything. Instead, she nodded along with her husband's words. "Derek's right, Mom. We're starting a new life now. A life without complications." "Complications?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Lauren had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable, but Derek stepped forward, his chest puffed with newfound bravado. "Look, Beulah," he said, using my first name like a weapon. "You're a broke old lady living on Social Security and pension scraps. We don't need your $8,000, and we sure don't need you hanging around playing the poor widow." I felt something inside me crystallize into ice. "I see. We got bigger plans now," Derek continued, warming to his theme. "Important people to meet, places to go. You can go back to your little apartment and your bridge club and your sad little life." I reached for my purse, my hands surprisingly steady despite the rage building in my chest. "Of course. I should go." "Yeah, you should," Lauren said, and her voice carried a cruelty I'd never heard before. "We don't need your pension cash anymore, broke old lady. Just go die." The words hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. My own daughter had just told me to die, dismissed me like garbage, and done it with a smile on her face. I walked to the front door on unsteady legs, Lauren and Derek following behind me like they were escorting an unwanted solicitor. As I reached for the door handle, something made me pause. "Did you read the name on the back of that lottery ticket?" I asked quietly, not turning around. I felt them freeze behind me. In the reflection of their front window, I could see their faces drain of color. "What do you mean?" Derek's voice had lost some of its swagger. I turned around slowly, meeting their eyes with a calm I didn't feel. "I asked if you read the name on the back of that ticket." Lauren's hand went to her throat. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I smiled, a small, controlled expression that would have warned anyone who truly knew me to step very carefully. "Nothing important," I said, opening the door. "Congratulations on your big win." I walked to my car with measured steps, aware that they were watching me from their window. Once I was safely inside, I opened my glove compartment and touched a thin manila envelope labeled in my careful handwriting, "Copies." Some people believe that age makes you weak, that being 62 means being invisible, that widowhood renders you powerless. Lauren and Derek had just made that mistake. They were about to learn that I'd spent 40 years as a hospital administrator, navigating bureaucracy and documentation like a second language. I knew the power of paperwork, the authority of signatures, the finality of proper procedures. More importantly, they were about to discover that the lottery ticket they were so eager to claim bore a very specific signature in blue archival ink. If you're enjoying this story of a woman who refused to be discarded, please hit that like button and subscribe for more empowering tales. If you've ever been told you're too old to start over, let me tell you, that's a lie. Your story isn't over, and you still have chapters left to write. Our best-selling book, Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain, is filled with simple, powerful steps to help you heal, rebuild, and fall in love with life again. Click the link in the description box and start your new beginning today. Because sometimes the most beautiful revenge is simply being prepared for people to show you exactly who they are. People don't understand the power of a signature until it's too late. They think of it as a formality, a quick scrawl at the bottom of a page. But I learned long ago that a signature is a declaration of ownership, a claim of responsibility, a legal fingerprint that can't be erased or denied. I had purchased that lottery ticket at 7:12 a.m. at Tommy's Corner Market, just like I did every Tuesday for the past 3 years. Tommy Ruiz, the owner, always greeted me with a warm smile and genuine interest in my perfume, Chanel No. 5, the same scent I'd worn since my wedding day 38 years ago. That particular morning, I'd bought 2 tickets. One quick pick for myself, which I signed immediately in blue archival ink, the same pen I'd used for hospital documents for decades. The second ticket was an impulse purchase and signed, intended as a small gift for Lauren. Tommy always circled my numbers with his felt-tip pen, a small kindness that made the routine feel personal. After he handed me my receipt and change, I carefully photographed both sides of my signed ticket with my phone, making sure the timestamp metadata was clear. Old habits from years of documentation. The signed ticket, my ticket, was the one that won $43 million. The unsigned gift ticket I'd intended for Lauren? That one lost. But in their greed and excitement, Lauren and Derek had assumed the winning ticket was theirs simply because it was in their house. They hadn't bothered to check the signature on the back. After leaving their house, I drove directly to First National Bank, where I'd maintained accounts for over 20 years. Mrs. Patterson at customer service knew me well, and she expedited access to my safety deposit box without the usual fuss. Inside that fireproof steel container, I placed 2 notarized copies of my ticket scans, a sworn affidavit detailing the purchase, and a carefully drafted letter to the State Lottery Commission's General Counsel. I'd learned during my hospital years that when dealing with legal matters, you always went straight to the top. From the bank, I made 2 crucial phone calls. The first was to Marta Sloan, a boutique trust attorney whose reputation for protecting assets was legendary. I'd worked with her during my hospital board days, and I knew she could navigate complex financial structures in her sleep. Beulah. Marta's voice was warm but professional. It's been too long. What can I do for you? I need to contest a lottery ticket, freeze any attempts to cash it, and establish protective trusts. How quickly can we move? How quickly do you need to move? They'll try to cash it as soon as the Lottery Commission opens tomorrow morning. There was a pause, then the sound of Marta's fingers flying over her keyboard. I can have a restraining order ready by 8 a.m. Bring me everything you have. The second call was to Cara Bell, an investigative reporter for the local television station who'd covered several of my hospital's charity drives. She had a reputation for thorough research and ethical reporting, exactly what I needed. Cara, it's Beulah Gideon from Memorial Hospital. I have a story that might interest you. Mrs. Gideon. How nice to hear from you. What kind of story? The kind where people assume a 62-year-old woman can be easily discarded, and they make that assumption at exactly the wrong moment. Cara's voice sharpened with professional interest.
I'm listening.
I gave her the basic facts, the lottery ticket, the signature, my daughter's cruel dismissal. She asked intelligent questions, taking notes I could hear scratching across paper. This is fascinating, she said finally. How do you want to handle it? Carefully, methodically, with complete documentation. That evening, I sat in my small but elegant apartment, surrounded by the life I'd built for myself after my husband's death 5 years earlier. The pearls around my neck had been his last gift to me, and I touched them now like a talisman as I reviewed my strategy. My phone buzzed with a text from Lauren. Mom, we need to talk. 5 minutes later, Derek followed with his own message. We'll let you keep a cut if you behave. I screenshot both messages and forwarded them to Marta's secure email. In 40 years of hospital administration, I'd learned that people's words in moments of stress often revealed their true intentions. These messages would make excellent evidence. I didn't respond to either text. Instead, I muted the conversation thread and went about my evening routine, a light dinner, some reading, and early to bed. Tomorrow would be a very interesting day. At exactly 8:15 a.m., I received an email from the State Lottery Commission. Please present the original ticket for verification of ownership before any winnings can be distributed. The original ticket, of course, was still at Lauren's house, which meant I would need to retrieve it. But I wouldn't be going alone. Documentation is everything, but documentation without proper chain of custody is worthless. I learned that principle during my years managing hospital records, where a single misplaced signature could mean the difference between life and death in a malpractice case. At 9 a.m. sharp, I walked into Tommy's Corner Market with a small digital recorder and a polite smile. Tommy looked surprised to see me twice in 1 week, but his expression turned to concern when he saw my face. Mrs. Gideon, is everything all right? Tommy, I need to ask a favor. Yesterday morning, when I bought those lottery tickets, Do you remember which one I signed? His face lit up with understanding. Oh yes, the one that won. I heard it on the news. That's wonderful. Actually, there's been some confusion about ownership. Would it be possible to review the security footage from yesterday morning? Tommy's expression darkened. Confusion? What kind of confusion? I explained the situation simply. The ticket I'd signed and purchased was being claimed by others who told me to just go die when I questioned it. Tommy's face flushed with anger. They said what to you? It's all right, Tommy. I just need to establish the truth. Within 10 minutes, Tommy had burned the relevant footage to a flash drive, clearly showing me purchasing both tickets, signing one, and placing them both in my purse. The timestamp matched my phone's metadata perfectly. You take this, Tommy said, pressing the drive into my hands. And Mrs. Gideon? You give them hell. From the corner market, I drove to the courthouse where Marta was waiting with a temporary restraining order signed by Judge Williams, a woman who'd served on the hospital board with me for 6 years. The order prevents the Lottery Commission from distributing any winnings until ownership is adjudicated, Marta explained as we walked toward my car. But we need the original ticket. I know exactly where it is. At 11 a.m., I knocked on Lauren's door, accompanied by Deputy Sheriff Martinez and carrying a court order that was narrowly tailored but absolutely binding. Produce and surrender the lottery ticket instrument bearing the signature of Beulah Gideon. Derek answered the door in a bathrobe, his hair disheveled and his eyes red from what appeared to be a sleepless night. When he saw the deputy, his face went pale. What's this about? He demanded. Deputy Martinez, a professional woman in her 40s, consulted her paperwork with the board efficiency of someone who dealt with similar situations many times before. Sir, we have a court order requiring you to produce a specific lottery ticket. The order carries criminal penalties for interference. Lauren appeared behind Derek, clutching a coffee mug with shaking hands. Mom, what are you doing? I'm claiming what's mine, I said simply. The ticket you're holding was purchased and signed by me. The court order requires you to turn it over. Derek sputtered about community property and family assets, but Deputy Martinez cut him off. Sir, would you like me to read you the section about criminal penalties for interfering with a court order? Lauren disappeared into the house and returned with a lottery ticket, her fingers trembling as she handed it to the deputy. The blue ink of my signature was clearly visible on the back. Thank you, I said, taking the ticket from Deputy Martinez. I'll be sure to let the court know you cooperated. An hour later, I sat in the State Lottery Commission offices while a polite woman examined my signature under magnification, compared it to my identification, reviewed the time-stamped photographs, and checked Tommy's security footage. Everything appears to be in order, Ms. Gideon, she said with a professional smile. Congratulations on your win. I nodded once and signed the necessary paperwork. No celebration, no jumping up and down, just the quiet satisfaction of watching proper procedures unfold exactly as they should. From there, I went directly to Marta's office, where we executed the Evergreen Trust, an ironclad financial structure with spendthrift protections and a very specific clause. No distributions could ever be made to any individual who had attempted to financially exploit the grantor. Outside the lottery office, a small crowd of reporters had gathered. Cara Bell stepped forward with her microphone as I walked toward my car. Mrs. Gideon, do you have any comment on today's events? I paused, adjusted my pearl earrings, and looked directly into the camera. Documentation protects those who are told to be quiet, I said simply. Then I got in my car and drove home, leaving the reporters to make of that what they would. By evening, my phone was buzzing with angry calls and texts from Lauren and Derek. I let them go to voicemail. I had more important work to do. The first part of my plan was complete. Now it was time to move to phase 2. Some victories are loud and messy. Others are quiet and surgical. I've always preferred the surgical approach. Clean cuts that heal exactly as intended, leaving no doubt about what happened or why. The morning after retrieving my lottery ticket, I woke to 17 missed calls from Derek and 12 from Lauren. Their voicemails progressed from angry to desperate to pleading, but I deleted each one without listening to completion. I'd heard all I needed to hear when Lauren told me to just go die. Instead, I spent my morning in productive meetings. First, with Marta to finalize the trust structure. The Evergreen Trust was a masterpiece of legal protection, irrevocable, with specific provisions that would ensure the money could never be touched by anyone who had attempted to defraud me. More importantly, it established a clear paper trail of Lauren and Derek's actions, documented in legal language that would follow them for the rest of their lives. Second, with my financial advisor to discuss investment strategies for money I never expected to have. $43 million, even after taxes, was more than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. But it wasn't about the money, it was about the principle. Third, with a discreet private investigator named Victor Santos, whose specialty was financial forensics. If Derek and Lauren had been struggling financially before their attempted lottery grab, I wanted to understand exactly why. Debt consolidation loans, 3 credit cards maxed out, second mortgage taken 6 months ago, Victor reported, sliding a manila folder across my desk. Derek's real estate business has been hemorrhaging money for 2 years. They're about 60 days from bankruptcy. Interesting timing for a lottery ticket theft attempt, I observed. Very interesting. Also interesting, Derek's been meeting with some unsavory characters about quick money schemes. Loan sharks, essentially. I filed that information away for later use. For now, I had more immediate concerns. At 2 p.m., I received a call from Derek's primary mortgage lender. Mrs. Gideon, this is Janet from First Pacific Lending. I understand you might be interested in purchasing some distressed assets. I might be. What did you have in mind? The Parker property. Derek Parker defaulted on payments last month, and we're preparing to foreclose. But if someone wanted to buy the note outright. I smiled, alone in my apartment with my pearl necklace catching the afternoon light. Send me the paperwork. By 4 p.m., I own the note on Lauren and Derek's house. Perfectly legal, financially sound, and absolutely ruthless. I immediately exercise my right to call the loan due in full, a standard clause when loans are sold to new lenders. The notification letter was delivered by courier at 5:30 p.m. Through my private investigator's contacts, I learned that Derek answered the door, read the letter, and immediately began calling everyone he knew, trying to raise the money. No one was interested in lending to a man whose lottery ticket fraud attempt was already being discussed on local news. At 6 p.m., I received a call from the sheriff's office. Mrs. Gideon, this is Sergeant Rodriguez. Your daughter called to file a harassment complaint. She claims you're using your lottery winnings to destroy her family. Sergeant, did she mention that she and her husband attempted to steal my lottery ticket and told me to die when I questioned them about it? A pause. She did not mention that, no. I filed the report yesterday. Case number 2024-7741. You might want to review it before taking her complaint seriously. I'll do that, Mrs. Gideon. Have a good evening. That evening, I sat in my reading chair with a cup of tea and today's newspaper. Cara Bell's story had made the front page of the local section, the signature they overlooked, how a 62-year-old woman outlawyered a lottery grab. The article was thorough and fair, presenting the facts without sensationalism. It quoted my single statement about documentation protecting those told to be quiet, included responses from legal experts about the importance of proper signatures on financial instruments, and noted that both Lauren and Derek had declined to comment. The internet, however, was less restrained in its response. Social media was buzzing with support for the lottery grandma, who'd outsmarted her greedy family members. The story was being shared thousands of times, with comments ranging from admiration to outrage, not at me, but at Lauren and Derek. My phone rang at 8 p.m. Lauren's number appeared on the screen. I answered on the fourth ring. Mom. Her voice was small, broken.
Please.
We need to talk. Do we? You can't do this. You can't take our house. Your house? I wasn't aware you owned it outright. You know what I mean. The mortgage, the loan. The loan that was in default before I purchased it? The loan you defaulted on while planning to steal my lottery winnings. Silence on the line. Lauren, you made choices.
You told me to die.
You attempted to steal from me. Now you're facing the consequences of those choices. But we're family. Family doesn't tell each other to die, sweetheart. Family doesn't attempt fraud. Family doesn't dismiss their elders as broke old ladies when they think they've found a better option. I hung up before she could respond. 10 minutes later, Derek called. Beulah, let's be reasonable here. I hung up immediately and blocked both their numbers. Some conversations aren't worth having. Some relationships can't be repaired. Some people show you exactly who they are, and the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for them is believe them the first time. By morning, I would own their house. By next week, they would be evicted. And this was only the beginning. The thing about financial pressure is that it reveals character in the same way that heat reveals the true nature of metal. Some people become stronger under stress. Others simply melt. Derek and Lauren were melting spectacularly. 3 days after I called their loan due, Victor Santos delivered his follow-up report with the efficiency of a coroner presenting autopsy results. Derek's real estate license is under review by the state board, Victor explained, settling into the chair across from my desk. Seems there were some irregular transactions last year, properties sold to shell companies, inflated appraisals, that sort of thing. How irregular? The kind that attracts attention from the state attorney general's office. They've opened an investigation. I adjusted my pearl bracelet thoughtfully. And Lauren? Lost her job yesterday. Her employer cited reputational concerns affecting client relationships. Apparently, having your attempted lottery fraud broadcast on local news isn't good for business in the pharmaceutical sales industry. I felt a brief flicker of something that might have been sympathy for my daughter. But then I remembered her voice telling me to just go die, and the feeling passed. There's more, Victor continued. Derek's been reaching out to some questionable people for emergency loans. The kind of people who don't accept "I don't have it" as a valid reason for non-payment. How questionable? The kind that break kneecaps first and ask questions later. That afternoon, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to the country club where Lauren and Derek had maintained a membership they couldn't afford. I spoke with the membership coordinator, a pleasant woman named Patricia who'd known me for 15 years through my hospital board work. Patricia, I wanted you to be aware that there's currently a civil investigation involving the Parkers and attempted fraud. I thought the membership committee should know before any incidents reflect poorly on the club. Oh my goodness, Mrs. Gideon. I had no idea. Thank you for letting us know. The second call was to Derek's real estate agency, where I spoke with the managing partner. This is Beulah Gideon. I believe you should know that one of your agents, Derek Parker, is currently under investigation for attempted fraud involving lottery winnings. I thought you might want to review any recent transactions. By evening, Derek and Lauren had been suspended from their country club membership, pending resolution of legal matters, and Derek had been placed on administrative leave from his real estate agency, while allegations are investigated. Their social circle was contracting rapidly. I learned all of this through my network of contacts. Women who'd served on boards with me, volunteered at the same charities, attended the same social functions for decades. In a city this size, reputation travels fast, and mine had always been impeccable. Lauren and Derek's reputations, on the other hand, were becoming toxic. That evening, I received an unexpected visitor. Through my peephole, I saw Lauren standing in my hallway, holding an overnight bag and looking like she hadn't slept in days. I opened the door, but left the chain engaged. "What do you want, Lauren?" "Mom, please. Can I come in? Just for a few minutes?" I studied my daughter's face. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was disheveled, and there was a desperation in her eyes that made her look younger and older simultaneously.
Why?
"Because I have nowhere else to go." I considered this. "What about Derek?" "He's dealing with some business issues. I just need a place to think, to figure things out." "Did you come here to apologize?" She shifted uncomfortably. "I came here because you're my mother." "Interesting. 3 days ago, you told your mother to die. Today, you need that same mother's help." "Mom, please." "Lauren, look at me." She raised her eyes to meet mine. "Do you understand what you did wrong?" A long pause. "We took your lottery ticket. Try again." "We assumed it was ours. Try again." Another pause, longer this time. "We were cruel to you." Getting warmer. But still not quite there. "I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to understand that when you told me to die, you revealed who you really are when you think you have power over someone. That revelation can't be taken back, Lauren. It can't be apologized away. So, you're going to destroy us?" "I'm going to let the consequences of your choices play out naturally. There's a difference. You bought our mortgage. I bought a defaulted loan. The default happened before I got involved. You're splitting hairs. I'm being precise. Precision matters." I closed the door and engaged the deadbolt. 20 minutes later, I watched from my window as Lauren walked back to her car, her overnight bag dragging behind her like a broken tail. The next morning, Cara Bell called to request an interview. "The story's gotten national attention," she explained. "People are fascinated by how you handled the situation." "What kind of interview?" "Just a few questions about documentation, signatures, protecting yourself from family fraud. Nothing sensational." I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, the lobby of the downtown Marriott, elegant and public, with good lighting for cameras. The interview was brief and professional. I wore my best navy suit and my complete pearl set, my silver hair styled in an elegant chignon that my hairdresser had perfected over 20 years. "Mrs. Gideon, what advice would you give to other seniors who might be facing family financial abuse?" "Document everything," I said, looking directly into the camera. "Keep records. Know your rights. And never let anyone convince you that age makes you powerless." "Any message for Lauren and Derek?" I smiled, the same controlled expression that had served me well in hospital board meetings when dealing with difficult decisions. "Actions have consequences. That's not cruelty. That's simply how the world works." The interview aired that evening during the dinner news. By morning, it had been picked up by 3 national networks. I was becoming more famous than I'd ever intended to be. But fame, I was learning, could be a very useful tool. This story gets even more satisfying. If you're loving Beulah's methodical approach to justice, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Remember, our book Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain isn't just about healing. It's about reclaiming your power and never letting anyone make you feel disposable. The strategies in that book have helped thousands of people transform their pain into power. Check the link in the description and start your own empowerment journey today. Because sometimes, the best revenge is simply being too prepared and too dignified to be destroyed. Eviction is a process, not an event. It unfolds with the methodical precision of legal machinery, each step documented, each deadline absolute, each consequence inevitable. I gave Derek and Lauren 30 days to vacate the property I now owned. The law required it, and I've always been meticulous about following proper procedures. They used those 30 days poorly. Victor's surveillance reports painted a picture of 2 people in complete denial about their situation. Derek spent his days making increasingly desperate phone calls to contacts who were no longer taking his calls. Lauren drove around the city, looking at rental properties they couldn't afford with their current credit rating and employment status. Neither of them attempted to pack or prepare for the inevitable. "They're hosting parties," Victor reported during our weekly meeting. "Loud ones. The neighbors have filed 3 noise complaints in the past week." I reviewed the police reports, noting the times, dates, and specific violations. Each complaint was another documented infraction, another justification for accelerated eviction proceedings. What kind of parties? The desperate kind. Derek's trying to maintain the illusion that everything's fine, that they're still the lottery winners everyone thinks they are. He's telling people the ticket dispute is just a technicality. And people believe him? Fewer each day, especially after your national television interview. That interview had indeed changed things. I'd received calls from reporters as far away as California, all wanting to discuss the lottery signature case that was becoming a cautionary tale about family greed and the importance of proper documentation. But more importantly, for my immediate purposes, the coverage had made Lauren and Derek local celebrities, the kind of celebrities people pointed at in grocery stores while whispering about their attempted fraud. Their social isolation was becoming complete. On day 27 of their 30-day notice period, I received a call from the Neighborhood Association president. "Mrs. Gideon, I hope you don't mind me calling directly. We have some concerns about the Parker property." "What kind of concerns?" "Loud music until 3 in the morning, cars parked on lawns, trash not picked up. The neighbors are getting upset." "I understand completely. I'll address the situation immediately." I called my attorney and had the eviction accelerated due to nuisance violations and lease infractions. Instead of 3 more days, Derek and Lauren had 24 hours. The notice was served by sheriff's deputy at 8 a.m. the next morning. I wasn't there to see their faces, but Victor's surveillance recorded Derek punching a hole in the living room wall and Lauren collapsing on the front porch steps, sobbing. By noon, a moving truck arrived, not to help them relocate, but to remove their belongings to a storage facility they couldn't afford to maintain long-term. By 6 p.m., the locks were changed. That evening, I drove past the house that was now mine, a modest colonial in a decent neighborhood that I'd visited hundreds of times as a grandmother and guest. It looked smaller somehow, emptier, like it was holding its breath. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt methodical. The next morning brought an unexpected phone call from Derek's mother, Patricia Parker, a woman I'd known casually through church and community events. "Beulah, I hope you'll forgive the intrusion, but I need to speak with you about Derek and Lauren." "Of course, Patricia. What's on your mind?" "They're staying with us temporarily and, well, Derek is talking about fighting this somehow. Taking you to court, claiming elder abuse, that sort of thing." I almost laughed. Elder abuse? I know it sounds ridiculous, but he's desperate, Beulah. And desperate people make poor decisions. "What are you asking me to do?" "I'm asking you to be careful. Derek's been drinking heavily, and he's making threats." "What kind of threats?" "The kind that worry a mother." After hanging up, I called Victor and increased the security measures. If Derek was becoming unpredictable, I needed to be prepared. That afternoon, I received a visit from Detective Sarah Martinez of the Financial Crimes Unit, following up on my original complaint about the attempted lottery fraud. "Mrs. Gideon, we've completed our investigation. Derek and Lauren Parker will be facing formal charges, attempted fraud, conspiracy, and elder financial abuse." Elder financial abuse? Their text messages to you constitute attempted financial coercion of a senior citizen. It's a felony in this state. I poured Detective Martinez a cup of coffee and settled into my chair, my pearl necklace catching the afternoon light. "What happens now?" "Arraignment is scheduled for next week. Given their current financial situation, I doubt they'll make bail." After she left, I sat quietly in my apartment, considering the trajectory of events I'd set in motion. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a dismissed old woman told to just go die. Now I own my tormentor's house. Their former employers wouldn't hire them, their friends had abandoned them, and they were facing criminal charges. The transformation was remarkable in its completeness. That evening, I called Tommy at the corner market. "Mrs. Gideon, I saw you on the national news. You're famous." "I never intended to be famous, Tommy. I just intended to be right." "Well, you sure showed them. Nobody should talk to their mother like that." "Thank you, Tommy. I wanted to ask, have you seen them around recently?" "Derek came in yesterday, trying to buy cigarettes with a credit card that got declined. He looked rough, Mrs. Gideon. Real rough." After hanging up, I made one final call of the day, to Marta, to discuss the next phase of my plans. "The trust is performing exactly as designed," Marta reported. "Your wealth is growing, protected, and completely inaccessible to anyone who attempted to defraud you. And if they continue to escalate, then they'll discover that legal consequences have a way of compounding, just like interest." I went to bed that night with a sense of completion. Not satisfaction. Satisfaction implied emotion, and this was simply a matter of cause and effect, action and consequence. Tomorrow would bring new developments. Derek's desperation was reaching dangerous levels, and desperate people, as Patricia Parker had warned, make very poor decisions indeed. Some people burn slowly, consuming themselves bit by bit over months or years. Others ignite all at once, destroying everything around them in a single, spectacular moment of self-destruction. Derek Parker chose the spectacular approach. I learned about his plan at 2:13 a.m. when my security system's motion detectors activated, sending alerts to my phone and automatically recording everything through the high-definition cameras I'd had installed after Patricia Parker's warning about her son's increasingly erratic behavior. From my secure hotel room across town, I'd taken Victor's advice about varying my routine when dealing with unstable individuals. I watched Derek stumble through my apartment building's parking garage, carrying a red gasoline can and a bundle of rags. He was drunk, clearly, weaving slightly as he made his way to the stairwell that led to my floor. But drunk or not, his intentions were unmistakable. What Derek didn't know was that 6 hours earlier, I'd placed an anonymous call to the fire marshal's office, reporting concerns about a potential arson threat to my building. I'd provided Derek's name, his recent history of financial desperation, and his escalating pattern of threats. 2 patrol units were idling 3 blocks away, waiting. Through my phone's security app, I watched Derek reach my floor and approach my door. He set the gasoline can down and began soaking the rags, his movements clumsy but determined. Lauren appeared at the far end of the hallway, emerging from the stairwell in a panic. "Derek, stop." Her voice was barely audible through the building's ambient noise, but the security cameras picked up her movement as she ran toward him. "This ends tonight," Derek slurred, fumbling with a lighter. "She destroyed us, and I'm going to destroy her. This is crazy. You'll kill innocent people. I don't care anymore." The lighter flared, catching the gasoline-soaked rag. But Derek's intoxicated coordination failed him at the crucial moment. The burning rag slipped from his grip, landing on the carpet while he still held the open gasoline can. What happened next unfolded with the terrible inevitability of cause and effect. Fire travels faster than thought. The hallway carpet ignited in a line of flame that traced back to the spilled gasoline around Derek's feet. He dropped the can, which tipped and spread its contents across the floor. Lauren lunged forward to help him, and they both stumbled. The building's sprinkler system activated immediately, but gasoline burns differently than ordinary fire. The water spread the flames instead of suppressing them. From my hotel room, I watched the security feed show smoke filling the hallway, then flames licking under the door of an unoccupied unit where construction crews had left sawdust and paint supplies. I called 911, reporting the fire I could see developing on my building's security cameras. I gave the dispatcher Derek's exact location, described the gasoline and burning rags, and explained that I was the building resident who'd received threats. The fire department arrived within 6 minutes. By then, the smoke was too thick for Derek and Lauren to find their way to safety unaided. The firefighters who pulled them from the building were genuine heroes, risking their lives to save 2 people who'd been attempting arson. But by the time they were extracted, both Derek and Lauren had suffered severe smoke inhalation. Lauren survived, barely, with lung damage that would affect her for the rest of her life. Derek did not. I arrived at the scene an hour later, after the fire was extinguished and the investigators were beginning their work. I stood at a respectful distance, my hair pinned immaculately despite the early hour, my hands folded calmly as I watched them load Derek's body into the coroner's van. Detective Martinez approached me with questions. "Mrs. Gideon, I understand you weren't home when this happened?" "No, Detective. I'd taken security advice about varying my routine when dealing with potentially unstable individuals." "And you called in the fire?" "I have security cameras throughout the building. When I saw smoke developing, I called immediately." "Did you have any advance warning this might happen?" Derek had been making threats. His mother warned me he was becoming unpredictable. That's why I wasn't home. She nodded, making notes. "We found evidence of arson, gasoline, accelerants, the works. This appears to be an attempted murder that went wrong." "How tragic," I said, and I meant it. Not tragic that Derek was dead. He'd made his choices. But tragic that Lauren would spend the rest of her life knowing her husband had died while trying to commit murder. "Will you need anything from me for the investigation?" "Just your security footage, which we've already secured." "And Mrs. Gideon?" "Yes. You might want to consider a restraining order against Lauren Parker when she's released from the hospital. Her husband just died trying to burn down your building. She might blame you for his death." I adjusted my pearl earrings thoughtfully. "That's very wise advice, Detective. Thank you." 2 days later, I attended Derek's funeral, not out of respect for him, but out of respect for the process. I wore black, stood at the back of the funeral home, and said nothing to anyone. Lauren, still hospitalized with lung damage, wasn't able to attend her husband's burial. I was probably the only person there who knew that Derek's death was entirely of his own making. A man so consumed with rage at facing consequences that he'd literally set himself on fire trying to destroy someone else. As I walked back to my car after the service, I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, no sense of victory. I felt completion. The story that began with "just go die" had ended with Derek Parker dying by his own hand, in pursuit of a revenge that was always impossible. Some lessons can only be learned posthumously. Lauren was released from the hospital 3 weeks after the fire, her lungs scarred, her voice permanently hoarse, her husband dead by his own reckless stupidity. She'd lost everything: home, marriage, health, future, in pursuit of lottery money that was never hers to begin with. I learned of her release through Detective Martinez, who called to inform me that Lauren had indeed been making statements blaming me for Derek's death. "She's telling anyone who'll listen that you drove her husband to desperation," the detective explained. "Legally, there's nothing she can do. Derek committed attempted arson and died in the process. But emotionally, she's not stable. What do you recommend?" "Stay alert. Avoid being alone with her. Document any contact attempts." I thanked Detective Martinez and hung up, then immediately called Victor to increase security measures around my apartment building. The restraining order was approved within 48 hours. Lauren's first violation came 2 days later when she appeared at my building's front entrance at 6 a.m., screaming accusations through the locked glass doors. The security cameras recorded every word, her blaming me for Derek's death, her threats to make me pay, her demands that I give her what she deserved from the lottery winnings. Building security called the police, who arrested her for violating the restraining order. She spent the night in jail and was released with another court date and a stern warning from Judge Williams. Her second violation came a week later when she followed me to the grocery store, cornering me in the produce section to hiss accusations while other shoppers stared. "You killed him," she whispered, her damaged voice making the words sound like sandpaper. "You killed my husband as surely as if you'd lit that match yourself." "Lauren," I said calmly, not stepping back despite her proximity, "Derek died because he chose to commit arson while intoxicated. Those were his choices, not mine. You drove him to it. I held him accountable for attempting to steal from me. There's a difference." Store security intervened before the situation escalated, but not before several customers recorded the confrontation on their phones. By evening, the videos were circulating on social media with captions like, "Lottery Widow Harris's grandmother in grocery store." The court was less patient with Lauren's second violation. Judge Williams sentenced her to 60 days in jail and ordered her to undergo psychological evaluation before any future release. During those 60 days, I made arrangements. I put Lauren and Derek's former house on the market, pricing it fairly but firmly. It sold within 2 weeks to a young family with 2 small children who were thrilled to find a move-in-ready home in a good neighborhood. I donated Derek's belongings to charity and had Lauren's possessions moved to a storage unit, paid for 1 year in advance. When she was released from jail, she would have access to her things, but she would need to arrange her own housing. I also met with Marta to establish additional trust provisions. Any future attempts by Lauren to claim inheritance rights or file wrongful death suits would trigger automatic legal responses funded by the trust itself. "It's a comprehensive defensive structure," Marta explained as we reviewed the documents. "She can sue you, but she'll be fighting the trust's legal team at every step, funded by money she can never touch. And if she becomes genuinely dangerous, then the trust has provisions for personal security, relocation assistance, and legal prosecution. You've essentially made it impossible for her to harm you financially, legally, or physically." On the day Lauren was released from jail, I received a call from her court-appointed social worker. "Mrs. Gideon, Lauren Parker has been deemed mentally competent but emotionally unstable. She's been assigned to a supervised living facility and mandatory counseling." "Where will she be living?" "A halfway house across town. She'll have supervised employment placement and mandatory therapy sessions 3 times a week." "What kind of employment?" "Minimum wage service work. Nothing that requires background checks or financial responsibility." I felt that familiar flicker of something that might have been sympathy. Lauren had gone from pharmaceutical sales to minimum wage work, from a suburban home to a halfway house, from marriage to widowhood, all because she'd told her mother to die and tried to steal lottery winnings. But sympathy without boundaries is an invitation to further abuse. I'd learned that lesson thoroughly. That evening, I sat in my reading chair with a cup of tea and thought about consequences. Derek was dead by his own choices. Lauren was alive but broken, facing decades of poverty, obscurity, and the knowledge that her husband had died trying to commit murder. Neither outcome brought me joy, but both were the natural result of their decisions, not mine. My phone rang at 8 p.m. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Hello? Mrs. Gideon?" The voice was hoarse, damaged. "It's Lauren." "Lauren, you're not supposed to contact me. The restraining order." "I know. I needed to say something." I waited. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For all of it. For what we said, what we tried to do, what Derek became. I'm sorry." I considered hanging up. The restraining order was clear, and this call was a violation. But something in her voice, genuine brokenness, not manipulation, made me listen. "Are you apologizing because you're sorry, or because you finally understand the consequences?" A long pause. Both, I think. Lauren, do you understand what you did wrong? Not the lottery ticket before that. The fundamental thing. We were cruel to you. Try again. We dismissed you. We treated you like you didn't matter. Keep going. We stopped seeing you as a person. You became just an obstacle to what we wanted. For the first time in months, I heard something in my daughter's voice that sounded like the child I'd raised. That's closer to the truth, I said quietly. Is there any way, any possibility that someday? That someday what? That you might forgive me? I thought about that question for a long time. In the silence, I could hear Lauren breathing on the other end of the line, waiting for an answer that would determine the rest of her life. Lauren, I said finally, forgiveness isn't something you earn back. It's something you live without until you become someone who no longer needs it. I hung up before she could respond. The next morning, I changed my phone number. Some stories end with tearful reconciliations and lessons learned. Others end with the simple, brutal mathematics of cause and effect. Mine was decidedly the latter. 6 months after Derek's death, Lauren's court-appointed attorney requested a meeting to discuss what he delicately termed estate matters and family reconciliation opportunities. I agreed to meet at Marta's office, a neutral location with proper legal oversight. The attorney, a tired-looking man named James Morrison who specialized in court-appointed cases, arrived with a thin file and what appeared to be prepared remarks about healing and moving forward. Mrs. Gideon, he began, settling into his chair across from Marta's conference table, my client is hoping that some time and reflection might have opened possibilities for family repair. What kind of possibilities? I asked, adjusting my pearl bracelet. Well, Lauren understands that she made serious errors in judgment. She's been in counseling, she's working steadily, and she's made significant progress in accepting responsibility for her actions. That's commendable. She was hoping that perhaps you might consider some form of financial assistance as she rebuilds her life. Nothing dramatic, just enough to help her transition from the halfway house to independent living. I looked at Marta, who was taking careful notes, then back at Morrison. Is Lauren aware of the Evergreen Trust's provisions regarding people who attempted to defraud me? Morrison shifted uncomfortably. She mentioned there might be some legal complications, but she was hoping that family considerations might override. Mr. Morrison, let me be very clear. The Trust One established specifically prohibits any distributions to individuals who attempted to exploit me financially. That provision is irrevocable and permanent. But surely, in cases of genuine hardship, the hardship is a direct result of Lauren's choices. She chose to attempt fraud.
She chose to tell me to die.
She chose to support her husband's escalating threats and violence. These were all deliberate decisions made by competent adults. Morrison opened his file and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Lauren asked me to give you this. It was a handwritten letter, several pages long, in Lauren's careful script. I read it silently while Morrison and Marta waited. The letter was well written and appeared genuinely contrite. Lauren acknowledged her cruelty, accepted responsibility for her actions, expressed remorse for Derek's death, and detailed her current circumstances: minimum wage work at a laundromat, a small room in a boarding house, mandatory counseling sessions that were actually helping her understand how badly she'd lost her way. She didn't ask for money directly. Instead, she asked for something more valuable and more impossible: the possibility of eventually rebuilding some form of relationship with me. I read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in my purse. Please tell Lauren that I received her letter and that I appreciate the effort she put into writing it. And regarding financial assistance, the trust provisions stand. They will always stand. What about personal reconciliation? Lauren is your only child. I thought about that fact, the biological reality that Lauren and I shared DNA, history, decades of memories before greed and cruelty poisoned everything. Mr. Morrison, when someone shows you who they really are in a moment when they think they have power over you, that revelation doesn't disappear just because circumstances change. Lauren revealed herself to be someone who could dismiss her mother as worthless and tell her to die. That person still exists inside her, regardless of how much counseling she receives. People can change. People can modify their behavior. Their fundamental character is more resistant to revision. I stood up, smoothing my skirt with hands that remained perfectly steady. Please tell Lauren that I hope she builds a good life for herself. I hope she finds peace, purpose, and genuine happiness. But I won't be part of that life, and my money will never touch her hands. Morrison made one last attempt. Mrs. Gideon, she's learned from her mistakes. Surely that counts for something. It counts for her future relationships. It doesn't retroactively erase what she did to me. After Morrison left, Marta and I finalized additional trust provisions that would ensure my decision remained binding even after my death. The trust will operate in perpetuity, Marta explained as we signed the final documents. Even if Lauren marries, has children, or faces genuine emergencies, none of your wealth will ever reach your bloodline. And if she contests the trust after I'm gone, she'll be fighting a legal structure designed by experts and funded by the very money she's trying to claim. It's an unwinnable battle. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done since the night Lauren told me to die. I visited Derek's grave. The headstone was simple, paid for by his mother. Derek Michael Parker, beloved son and husband. No mention of how he died or why. I stood there for exactly 5 minutes, not in mourning but in observation. Derek had chosen his path and followed it to its logical conclusion. Lauren had chosen hers and was living with the consequences. I had chosen mine and was prospering because of it. From the cemetery, I drove to Tommy's Corner Market and bought flowers. White roses for clarity, yellow chrysanthemums for truth. These are beautiful, Mrs. Gideon, Tommy said as he rang them up. Special occasion? Closure, I replied. That evening, I arranged the flowers in my apartment and called Cara Bell for one final interview. The story's taken on a life of its own, she told me. People are still talking about it, still sharing it on social media. You've become a symbol for people who've been dismissed by their families. What kind of symbol? Proof that underestimating someone can be the last mistake you ever make. The interview was brief and final. I explained that the legal matters had been resolved, that I was moving forward with my life, and that I had no further comments about family reconciliation. Any advice for other people facing family exploitation?
Cara asked.
I looked directly into the camera, thinking of all the people who might be watching, people dismissed by their own children, people told they were worthless, people whose love had been weaponized against them. Document everything. Trust the law more than you trust blood. And never, ever let anyone convince you that you deserve to be treated as disposable. The interview aired that evening. It would be my last public statement on the matter. The next morning, I changed my locks one final time and began planning the next phase of my life. A life funded by $43 million, but built on something much more valuable. The absolute certainty that I would never again allow anyone to mistake my kindness for weakness. People often ask me if I feel guilty about how things ended. They want to know if I lie awake at night thinking about Derek's death or Lauren's poverty, if I regret not showing more mercy, if I wish I'd handled things differently. The answer is simple: no. Guilt is for people who harm others through malice or negligence. I harmed no one. I simply declined to be harmed myself, and I allowed the consequences of other people's choices to unfold naturally. It's been 2 years since Derek died trying to burn down my building. 2 years since Lauren lost everything in pursuit of money that was never hers. 2 years since I learned that the daughter I'd raised could look me in the eye and tell me to die. I've spent those 2 years building something better than revenge. I've built a life that proves their assessment of me was catastrophically wrong. The Evergreen Trust has grown to over $60 million through careful investment. I live comfortably, but not extravagantly, in a penthouse apartment with a view of the city skyline, security that ensures my privacy, and a daily routine that brings me genuine satisfaction. I volunteer at the hospital where I spent my career, mentoring young administrators who are learning to navigate the complex intersection of healthcare and bureaucracy. I serve on the boards of 3 charities focused on elder rights and financial abuse prevention. Most importantly, I've learned to exist without the weight of family obligation that once made me vulnerable to exploitation. I see Tommy every Tuesday at the corner market, where we chat about the weather, local politics, and the small happenings that make up ordinary life. He asks about my health, I ask about his grandchildren, and neither of us mentions lottery tickets. Last month, Tommy told me that Lauren had come into his store. She looked rough, Mrs. Gideon. Really rough. Asked about you. Wanted to know if I'd seen you, if you were doing okay. What did you tell her? Told her you were fine, and that she should leave well enough alone. Good advice. She bought a lottery ticket. Same numbers you used to play. I felt nothing at that news.
No anger, no sympathie, no ironic satisfaction.
Lauren gambling her minimum wage earnings on impossible odds was simply another poor decision in a life that had become defined by them. I hope she wins, I told Tommy, and I meant it. Not because I wanted her to be happy, but because I wanted her to learn that money doesn't fix fundamental character flaws. That afternoon, I did something I'd been considering for months. I wrote a letter, not to Lauren, but to be opened after my death, explaining exactly why the trust provisions existed and why they could never be changed. To whom it may concern. The Evergreen Trust was designed to ensure that people who attempt to exploit, dismiss, or harm me face permanent consequences for those choices. This is not cruelty, it is justice. Lauren Parker told her mother to die when she thought she could steal from me. Derek Parker attempted to murder me when his theft failed. These actions revealed their fundamental character, and character doesn't change just because circumstances do. I do not want my money to flow to people who demonstrated that they considered me worthless. This decision is final, irrevocable, and morally justified. Some stories end with forgiveness. Mine ends with accountability. Beulah Gideon. I sealed the letter and gave it to Marta for the trust files. That evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sun set over the city I'd called home for 62 years. The building where Derek died is visible from my apartment, renovated now, no trace of the fire that consumed him. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mom, it's Lauren. I got a new phone. I just wanted you to know I'm doing okay. I have a job at a flower shop now. I think about you every day. I read the message twice, then blocked the number without responding. Some conversations don't deserve to continue. Some relationships can't survive the truth. Some people show you exactly who they are, and the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for them is believe them completely. I deleted the message and returned to watching the sunset. Tomorrow I'll wake up in my beautiful apartment, check my investment portfolio, review my charity board responsibilities, and continue building the life I was told was worthless. I'll do this surrounded by people who treat me with respect, funded by money I rightfully earned, protected by legal structures I carefully designed. Lauren will wake up in her boarding house room, go to her minimum wage job, and spend another day living with the consequences of telling her mother to die. The mathematics of justice are remarkably simple. Actions create reactions, choices generate consequences, and people who mistake kindness for weakness learn that mistake has a cost. I've paid my dues to family loyalty. I've sacrificed enough for people who didn't value the sacrifice. I've been generous to those who responded to generosity with cruelty. Now I live for myself, by myself, with the absolute certainty that no one will ever again be able to dismiss me as a broke old lady who should just go die. Because I didn't die. I thrived. And that, more than any revenge, is the most perfect justice of all. People say revenge is a dish best served cold. They're wrong. Revenge isn't a dish at all. It's a system, and when it's built correctly, it runs without you. If this story of triumph over betrayal has inspired you, please like this video and subscribe for more empowering tales. Remember, it's never too late to reclaim your power and show the world who you really are. Our book, Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain, contains the strategies and mindset shifts that helped Beulah transform from victim to victor. Don't let anyone convince you that your age makes you powerless. Sometimes the most satisfying victories come to those who refuse to be underestimated. Click the link in the description and start writing your own comeback story today. Because the most beautiful revenge is a life so well lived that it makes your enemy's cruelty irrelevant.